Okay, so what I'm going to say first is advice for me before anyone else. So inshallah, we will benefit from this in some way. So first off, question to the audience. In today's society, we know what's going on. How would you describe it in one word? Please shout out single words.
Trash.
Messed up.
Anyone else?
Chaotic.
One word, is that?
Yes, one word.
Mess.
Chaos. Okay.
Chaos.
Okay, good. Okay. So in today's... Okay, there's a specific word that I'm looking for, but I'll come back to that. So in today's society, people typically do not think before they act. I have made that mistake. I'm sure one of us, or a lot of people have done the same thing. So if you don't hold yourself accountable, i.e. you don't self-reflect before you commit to the action that you're doing, what is going to happen? So you do an action, a negative action, something from that is going to happen. And there's a word that I'm looking for specifically. Anyone want to guess? And not you. Anyone else?
An Arabic word or English?
English, please. So you do an action, a negative action, and something happens. No? Okay. Okay, you've hit the jackpot. Awesome. So yeah, so before you commit to an action, you should self-reflect, because of course, when you do an action, there's always going to be, if it's negative, a consequence. So some of the consequences that might happen when you do a negative action, and I'll give you examples afterwards. For example, I've broken it down into 3 types. You've got a physical consequence, i.e. going to prison, losing a friend. You've got a mental consequence, for example, going insane, drugs. And you've got the worst type of consequence, which is a spiritual consequence, going to hell. The Cambridge Dictionary defines self-reflection as the activity of thinking about your own feelings and behavior and the reasons that may lie behind them. So how many of us here have how many of us have consciously thought about reflecting before we do our actions? Anyone want to put their hand up? Consciously. You've actually taken the time to think before you committed to the action. Was it good or bad?
Sometimes, yeah. No,
Yep.
sometimes.
Okay. Okay, so the consequence, definition of that, after I've told you what the self-reflection definition is that it's a result of a particular action or situation, often one that is bad and is not convenient for us. So if we look at the examples, youngsters today, they're going outside. Typically some of them will carry some type of weapon, knife, and they might not have the intention of using it, but typically something bad happens from it. So what we don't want them to do to fall into regret and make the same mistake over and over again. We want them to learn from their mistakes. A lot of us, for example, have done exams. You know, when you got that result from the piece of paper and you've thought about, this is not the result that I wanted, why is that? And then you reflect and you realize if you had studied more, you maybe could have had better grades. Another one is, for example, health. Some of us like our food. Some of us eat food that is necessarily not good for us. And from that, what happens? People can become ill. So if you think about your food that you're eating, if you reflect, then you're going to realize that potentially that is one of the cause of the issues. So in order to reflect, we need to basically apply a strategy that we can use. And I've again thought about this and come up with these 4 different words. I think that can work together to basically help us. So the first one is learn. So you learn from your past. That way you don't make the mistakes in the future. You have regret because you want to dislike your actions that lead to those consequences. The third one is the actual consequence. You want to understand the ugliness of your actions because that is what's caused that consequence. And then the final one is change. You want to improve yourself so you don't make those same mistakes again. Here are some statistics to basically back some of the stuff that I've seen again in our reality that we can all basically see going on. So with the youngsters, knife crime is obviously one of the big things that's going on in London right now. So if you look at the Office of National Statistics, the year ending March 2023, there were 50,500 offences involving a sharp instrument in England and Wales, and that excludes Devon and Cornwall. This is 4.7% higher than the year before, 2021 to 2022, but it was 7% lower than 2019 and 20. Another one that we can all in some way relate to is to do with family. So the people, or the proportion of people that are basically staying single and not getting married has risen compared to the people that are basically getting married, which is in decline. And those two things are occurring because, of course, there are issues to do with the society. So anybody who doesn't self-reflect, hold themselves accountable, I will say that they are in some way insane. Because insanity is making the same mistake over and over again, and you expect something different to happen. So we need to reflect in order to hold ourselves accountable for our actions. So if we explore those 4 ways of trying to self-reflect, and we use the example of basically someone's had a knife and they've gone out, they killed someone, and now they're in prison. So what they would do, or what they should do in my opinion, is start off with the consequence. So they've done the action, they're in prison, they need to basically think about what they've done. So for example, the consequences of their actions, their mum will be upset because they're in prison now, they can't see them. If, their father will probably say, what did I do for my son to deserve this? And for example, the victim, their family, will of course be hurting as well. So everyone around that person is basically affected. Then if we go to regret, which is of course an emotion, what are those people feeling? For example, they're going to have regret, despair, to do with the fact that they've had that consequence. The victim's family is going to be feeling a lot of stuff, hurt, sadness. So then what they should do is learn, again using those emotions, the consequence, their actions, to basically learn from those mistakes. And then of course they change. And that way they're not going to commit to that same action again. And this leads back to holding yourself accountable, understanding what benefits you and what harms you. So if we come to why, for example, we have high knife crime and why people are not getting married and people are staying single, we need to look at the society around us. So what does society today tell us? It tells us to basically live for the now, to live for our desires and pleasures, and to basically not think about our consequences. So with the knife crime, for example, youths carrying knives, where are they getting the idea that they should do that? And if we look at it, it's coming from gangs, it's coming from music, TV, it's coming from the people around them. All of these things that they're doing is individualistic. So you live by these wrong ideas, which in turn, of course, results in those consequences. So with our religion, it gives us a different perspective and outlook on basically how we should be. So after we have grown up, our parents have taken care of us, it's not just about me, myself and I. We have a duty, for example, towards our parents, our families, our kids. So how does the religion tell us to act? Our outlook as Muslims, as believers of Islam, is to basically not just believe in the dunya, we also have to believe in the hereafter. And to get to the hereafter, we have to do certain things. So if I give you this example, if you don't have religion, what happens? If you have 2 types of people, you've got a good person. The good person, for example, gives charity, looks after their family, helps society, and then they die. Compare that to the bad person. They basically go out, kill, they rape, they steal, and then they're dead. If both of those people don't have the concept of religion, what is their outcome? So without religion, there is no accountability. They're not going to be held against anything. They can do what they want. Our religion does allow us to basically have money, cars, properties, but not at the expense of others. So not killing someone, not stealing from them, because we're all going to be held accountable. In a godless society, you don't have accountability, which is what we're in. So people don't think about the consequences from their actions. They're only living for the now. But remember, we will be held accountable when we are dead. If you don't self-reflect, you're not going to be holding yourself accountable. Here is, for example, another scenario. If you imagine you're in a room, there's no cameras, no one's watching you, you can do as you wish, you can commit to your desires, you can steal, you can kill, do whatever you wish. What do you think people will do? And that's a question that you should think about. But then if you flip it, and in that same room, you've got CCTV cameras, people, and they can all see what you're doing, how do you think you're going to behave? You're probably not going to do what you want to do. You're going to live by certain rules. So in our religion, if we think about it, we do have like this invisible camera. There is something watching us. And of course, that's Allah. He's ever existent, He's present, He doesn't cease to exist. So we do have that mechanism that is going to hold us accountable when we die. And so Allah says in Surah Al-Hashr, O you who believe, fear Allah and keep your duty to Him, and let every person look to what He has sent forth for the morrow. And fear Allah, verily Allah is all aware of what you do. So going back to society, it pushes us to think and do everything for ourselves, which is that individualistic trait that it has built into us. Whether subconsciously or consciously we realize we all have it. Because it's all about minding our own business, not interfering, keeping opinions to yourself, and basically thinking just about yourself. Again, if you look at society, there's many examples. When a disaster happens, what do people first do? They take out their phones, they start recording. Someone could be dying right there in front of them. They're not even bothered. So, of course, there are atrocities around the world. And like I said, people, the first thing typically that they do is get out their phones. So how do we destroy this idea that we should be individualistic? Can't even say it. So, reason for the idea is that we don't see our own mistakes, we need help. So we should all hold each other, ourselves, accountable. We shouldn't make those same mistakes. We need someone to tell us when we're doing something wrong. And that is the idea of the title. A believer is like a mirror to his fellow believer. I can only see something that's in front of me. If I don't have that mirror, for example, I'm not going to know if I have dirt or something behind me. I need something to tell me what is there. So, should we get into each other's businesses? To some degree, yes, because we all need help. We all need help to get to that ultimate place. At the end of the day, when we go through Day of Judgment, where do we want to basically see ourselves? Inshallah, in heaven. Because my success is your success. Allah, for example, will ask me, what did I do to help you in your time of need? And vice versa. And inshallah, we can say, yes, I did help you, you helped me, therefore we did achieve success. And hopefully it's not the answer of no, because then that difference could be between heaven and hell. So our religion it does create, for example, sincerity. It holds ourselves accountable, it gets us to better ourselves, and of course it gets us to be successful. But we can't do that alone. And so I don't want to have the biggest regret on the Day of Judgment where I'm a loser, because I of course want to be a winner and I want to end up in heaven. So inshallah we can all hold ourselves accountable. Thank you for listening.